sunny spaces, smiling faces, happy places. But every sunny space holds a shadow. Behind every smile are sharp teeth. And every happy place has something sinister lurking just below the surface.
Welcome to We Saw the Devil, the podcast diving deep into the chilling realms of true crime. Join your host Robin as she unravels mysteries that have left investigators baffled and armchair sleuths obsessed. Be forewarned, dear listener. We Saw the Devil is not for the faint of heart. Our unflinching exploration will take you to the darkest corners of the psyche and through the unimaginable depths of human darkness to unearth stark secrets to the harsh light of day. Nothing will be left untouched. Are you ready? Are you sure? We saw the devil.
Iris, I don't think I've ever been this excited about having you on the show before. I'm going to be completely honest.
Well, I'm very excited too. We are actually going to go and do what we do best. Horror.
You know what I just realized? I realized that almost 20 years ago is the last time that you pretty much came on to talk about horror.
It is, isn't it?
That's wild.
It is, because it wasn't very long ago also. And it was, I think for my show, when I was doing movie with
Martyrs,
Movie Fanatic. Yes, Martyrs.
Yep.
Thank you for the introduction.
Best movie of all time, for anyone wondering.
Definitely.
20 years. I feel like I have one foot. Every time I remember this fact of how long you and I have been friends, I'm like, fuck, I have like one foot in the grave. Someone go ahead and pick out my casket. Actually, I want to be cremated, for those who are wondering, but Jesus.
And I'm older than you, so.
Whoopsie.
I'm already in the casket.
Oh, no, you are not. You're doing better than I am. My hips sound like a bowl of Rice Krispies. Like everything is snap, crackling, and popping on my body right now.
Hey, that's how it goes.
Man. But yeah, it's been a while. If you listen to the last episode, you know that Iris is going to be coming on, and we're going to basically be doing a countdown to Halloween. I started out podcasting, doing reviews and conversations and interviews with the horror community in the world of horror film. That's how I met Iris. Mm-hmm. And Iris has been on, you've had how many horror podcasts?
Let's see. I've had one of my own. Mike and I used to do an exploitation one. I've been on several other horror podcasts. So yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a long time. And it's our favorite genre.
Oh,
and
yes.
I will fully accept. And this is something too that I think a lot of people who aren't really into horror films or cherry pick which ones that they like. The horror genre isn't just what I call tits and ass films from the 80s, right?
No.
So varied. There are some truly remarkable pieces of art in the horror film world. It's like finding a needle in a haystack. You're trying to find that one gem in a dung heap, but you do find it, you know?
You do. So excited.
These are two films that I'm really excited to discuss. So for this episode, we're going to be covering Green Inferno, the 2013 horror film by Eli Roth, and the 1980 Italian exploitation film Cannibal Holocaust by Ruggero Deodato. Each film is about cannibal tribes that Westerners encounter for whatever reason after venturing into the Amazon jungle. So in Cannibal Holocaust, it's a group of documentary filmmakers who purposefully go to make a documentary about the tribe and disappear. Then a research team is sent to fetch them. Fun fact for all of you, it's actually the first found footage film ever made.
It is.
So you can thank Cannibal Holocaust for the likes of Blair Witch Project, my favorite, Hell House, and many, many, many others. Now, in Green Inferno, it's purely an accident and a case of social activists being at the wrong place at the wrong time with shitty equipment. Each film has different themes. Cannibal Holocaust is a social commentary on shock value and emotional manipulation by media. Overall, just a really big critique of colonialism, you know, where white people visit a cannibal tribe and it's them who end up being the rapists and the assaulters. But Green Inferno is more of a social commentary on political activism. Directly quoting Eli Roth, he says, quote, "The film is a metaphor for how people are shamelessly consumed by their vanity and need for validation on social media." So we're going to dive into each film and discuss all of this. And also for this episode, you guys, this is going to be all spoilers.
So yeah, if you haven't seen it, well, oops.
Right? Stop now. Go watch both of these. I mean, that would make for a hell of an evening. Stop, watch both of these films, and come back. But you're going to have full spoilers for this episode.
It's a nice dinner piece.
It is something that you just make a really good stew and sit down to eat. So Green Inferno is pretty much Eli Roth's love letter to Italian cannibal films of the 70s and 80s. For whatever reason, and Iris, because this is more around the time of Cannibal Holocaust, I'm going to let you go with this one when you cover Cannibal Holocaust. But there was a whole slate of cannibal films in the 70s and early 80s that were coming out of Italian cinema. They're all what could be considered exploitation films, super gory, super graphic, kind of largely the same plot, even in a lot of them.
Yes, it was.
Yeah. I can't even, I pulled up a list and I got to about 30 of strictly just Italian cannibal films. It's ridiculous. But Green Inferno is directed by Eli Roth and co-written with Guillermo Amoedo. And fun fact, the Green Inferno, obviously refers to the trees of the rainforest, right? Green Inferno, har har. But it was actually the original working title of Cannibal Holocaust.
Yes, it was.
So right off the bat with Green Inferno, you can pretty much see Eli Roth. Like, this is a love letter homage to the genre of Italian cannibal films, chiefly Cannibal Holocaust. Green Inferno stars no one really of note, save for Sky Ferreira.
Oh, but Richard Burgi, he was in Desperate Housewives. He was the husband.
I'm so glad. I've never seen that show, so I'm glad you were able to pick that out.
Well, and I'm going to date myself. And he was also in General Hospital. I used to watch it when I was in, I think it was the 8th grade when Luke and Laura's story was real big.
Oh, I've heard of Luke and Laura. Well, thank you. I had no idea. I went through the IMDb and I'm like, I have not a single clue as to who any of these people are. And I only know of Sky Ferreira just by name as a singer.
Yeah, as a singer, right.
But yeah, dare I say, Green Inferno is more kind of a black comedy than a straight up horror film.
There were certain elements in there that does make it into a comedy.
Oh, for sure. I saw Green Inferno in theaters twice. I loved it so much the first time that I made one of my other friends go see it too. I am a huge fan of Green Inferno. I think it is hilarious. It is gory beyond belief, and it actually is hilarious. And the theater that I saw it in, the first night was packed. The second night was probably at 60% capacity. And I mean, it was a great crowd. Everyone was laughing. I mean, it was roaring laughter through half of this film. So it's not hard to say that it's kind of a black comedy. But let's talk about the plot. In Green Inferno, our protagonist is Justine, an early 20s college student living in New York City. And the film opens with her in her dorm room, woken up to the sound of student activists hunger striking for janitors' health insurance out on the quad. This little protest is being led by this attractive, dark-skinned, I believe he's Spanish, brooding guy named Alejandro, which sounds like somebody right off a 90 Day Fiancé. And as Justine goes to class, she and her friend, her roommate, loudly remark at how stupid it is. Like, can't believe people are that stupid. Like, that's stupid, that type of personality. Justine goes to class, and the class, now this provides hella foreshadowing. If you know anything about Eli Roth, he is all about that foreshadowing in his movies. So the topic of this particular class is, do you remember what it is, Iris?
Genital mutilation.
Female genital mutilation. So being hot for teacher, because, Alejandro, she decides to go get back in his good graces. So he ends up convincing her to join the cause of protecting the Peruvian rainforest from an evil corporation that's bulldozing, the trees and basically their home, essentially. So she has a little chat with her powerful father, who, as Iris said, Richard Burgi. He's a United Nations lawyer, so he's pretty high up there. And she positions her joining this cause to her father as she wants to go end female genital mutilation. And I love his answer, which is, quote, "There's laws, there's process. You can't just go invade a country because they're doing something you think is illegal or immoral. At least not anymore." It's like, ha 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 ha. Clap, clap. So this ragtag group of early 20s college student activists, they decided to travel from New York City and their campus to the Amazon rainforest in Peru on a direct action mission against rainforest destruction. Obviously, that's harming the local indigenous tribes. So they arrive and they make a huge scene. They're all out on their phones and screaming. They chain themselves to stuff, and they are promptly arrested. And they are sent back home on a plane. And it's here in this little scene where Eli Roth really hammers home poking fun at these types of people. Everything they're doing is a social media post or picture opportunity. They're slamming the hashtag Save Amazonia. Alejandro just starts like whooping and hollering and celebrating when they begin to go viral on Twitter. And it's almost like their cell phones hold this sort of dual purpose. First, they're obviously the lens that they're using to document the petrochemical company's behavior of them cutting down trees, not caring about the local natives or wildlife. But they also create kind of a barrier or protection between them and the reality of it all, right? Like they're standing, videoing, all this destruction, but they're not actually, in it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
His main point, Eli Roth's main point, is that for some, aspirations for justice of bringing this petrochemical company to justice, it's actually just disguised narcissism. They all just want to be famous and do something and get really good pats on the back via social media. So that was kind of the major point there. After they get arrested, they get herded onto a plane and their asses are sent back to New York. But naturally, their plane crashes in the middle of the Amazon near a tribe that they originally went there to protect. Except little did they know that tribe is composed of bloodthirsty cannibals who see them as dinner rather than allies. So a couple of them are dispatched quickly. The rest of them are captured and thrown into a pen, and one by one, ritualistically butchered and consumed by the tribe in various violent, gory, and graphic ways. And Eli Roth does not shy away from showing it. I mean, we have disembowelment, throat cutting, evisceration, a body being chopped into pieces and thrown into a stew pot, a body roasting. I mean, gore is what he's known for, especially after Hostel. But I think that Green Hell took it to another level.
Oh, I know. But Hostel is such a beautiful gore fest.
Mm-hmm. And as I loved Hostel. In one scene, the tribal leader actually plucks the eyes out of an activist's face and then eats them. And side note, fuck the sound engineer in that scene. It is a black comedy moment of, it doesn't matter who sees this, with the cell phone being basically associated with eyes to see, you're in reality now, bitch.
Right.
So it was a cool moment. So Justina singled out, and it's quickly discovered that she's a what?
She's a virgin.
She is a bird touched and she is touched for the very first time.
Yes, she was.
Oh, she sure was. Because they
actually...
way. Whew, man. And I'm like...
That's uncomfortable.
Whew, yes. That was uncomfortable. I feel like men, especially in horror films or whatever, kick in the nuts or they fall on things in their crotch. But like, there are very few films that just make women wince. And this, my hoo-ha was not hawing.
Yeah, it was like, close that bitch.
Oh, so they end up rupturing her hymen and preparing her for a ritual and eventual sacrifice. But then they get sidetracked. So Justine actually had this little flute necklace, and she played it a couple times for some children of the tribe. Well, this one child apparently took a liking to her. And as the tribal leaders were kind of sidetracked with chaos, this child actually allowed her to escape and then led her deep into the forest. So as she's leaving, Alejandro is begging her to free him. And she's like, nah, bitch, and runs away anyway. So she's running through the woods. She comes across a battle between the petrochemical company's militia, the force that's there to basically fend off attacks from the tribes. They're killing tribal people. And she ends up identifying herself as an American. It's a very tense scene. She identifies herself as an American and manages to escape back to the United States. And then she does this huge, major public interview where she says that she was the lone survivor of the crash and that the petrochemical company slaughtered these innocent, wonderful tribes people. She totally lies. And then the very last scene is Justine receives a phone call from who?
Alejandro's sister, Lucia.
Indeed. And she's like, what happened? Because there's a photograph that they have, I believe that a pilot took of him, right?
Mhm.
But it shows Alejandro still very, very much alive, still in the rainforest.
But who is he?
Who is he? Hashtag Finn. So that is the plot of Green Inferno. Iris, let me get your thoughts on Green Inferno.
Okay, so Green Inferno. I got to see this first time in the movie theater. It was great, big screen. It's Eli Roth. Like you said, gore. Beautiful gore. This kid has a way of expressing himself very atmospherically.
Mm-hmm.
And this movie is claustrophobic. It really, really is.
Mm-hmm.
You feel the forest around you, and then you have all these people around you. You're enclosed in a cage. It's just extremely, to me at least, it was extremely claustrophobic. And just these little tidbits of things that he was doing. One of my favorite kill scenes, the pilot who gets his head knocked back.
Oh,
as
that
they're
was rough in the
crashing.
crash. Mm.
Yes, that was just amazing. And then you have one of the guys who gets thrown out of the plane, and he's pierced himself in one of the branches. The idiot kid, this was another beautiful kill. The kid who's walking around like an idiot, and he gets his brain just like the very, very go ship. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
oh yeah, I forgot. I love that. And then of course, Kara, the way Kara dies.
Oh, that poor
Excellent.
Kara.
It was really well done though, because first you go
Mhm.
like the zoop, and then it's right across the neck, and then the one right in the middle of the forehead.
Oh, that was rough.
But see, okay, so it's a rough death, right? And you're like, oh, but inside you a little bit, you're like, wow, that was really cool.
Yeah, I know.
And does that make us psychopaths? I don't know.
If it does, that's okay.
Yeah, that's okay. We're in good company. Yeah, these were great kills. And one that kind of makes me a little cringy was Jonah, because Jonah was such a cool kid.
I
And
know.
Aaron Burns is actually a director also. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
Yeah, so he frequently collaborates with Eli. He was a graphic designer for Sin City. That's saying something.
Wow. That's it. Yeah, I was like, wow, that's impressive, actually.
Yeah. And then he was the 2D artist or the cartoonist for Grindhouse. So
Those
that's
are,
something. Yeah.
yeah.
So I mean, he's got something under the belt there, in more ways than one. But yeah, his death was a little hard, and that is the death where he's being, he gets his eyes taken out, his tongue is cut out, and then they start to dismember him.
Oh, man,
And
that was rough.
yeah, that was good. But the effects in that were done very well, and
Mhm.
I was impressed because there's a lot of times, especially with like the older Italian films, dismemberment, you could clearly tell that they were dummies.
Mhm,
And they
yeah.
were, but Eli has this way of trying to make this extremely real. He doesn't he won't pull back on it, and he basically kind of grabs you by the face and goes, look what I can do. And
Yes.
that is one of the things. I mean, like in Hostel, it still hurts my foot. I tap my foot when I see this happen every single time. Is when they snip the Achilles tendon.
I am not a fan. Same here.
My foot goes every single time I see that. Oh, but but this is what he does, right? He brings you in, he pulls you into the movie, and you're kind of like the silent character in that film the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
And also, what he was trying to do as a social commentary of shit. Yeah, I mean, I'm going to say this, and don't come after Robin because this is my opinion. The narcissism of white privilege.
Yep, exactly.
Okay, and it's just this beautiful social commentary of how we still feel civilized. We still feel like that white savior, and we insert ourselves in a way that we think we are helping, the uncivilized indigenous person, when all we're doing is actually doing more harm, either to
Yep.
ourselves or to them. And I think that's what he was trying to show, that, we are so narcissistic. We want to look like we are doing such cool things, and we're saving everybody, again, that white savior, when actually we're not.
Yep.
We're doing it for ourselves just to look good to everybody else. We are not actually doing it for the intention of, at least most people, I'm not saying everyone, okay, generalizing. It's done to show that we're cool and we're, I hate using this word, woke. But yeah, that's basically what it is. That's what you're doing. You're just trying to be cool.
I'm going to play devil's advocate here for a second. I feel
Mhm.
like Eli Roth promoted this film, and in every single interview, he used the phrase slacktivism. If you are on Facebook, trust me, you've seen a slacktivist. It's generally defined as, well, I'll give an example, being very vocal about a topic, but not doing anything about it. Like,
Right.
You change your profile picture in the wake of a school shooting. Every post is an article about guns or, violence or whatever, but you're not doing anything to affect change in gun laws or anything like that.
Besides sending thoughts and prayers.
Yes, it's the thoughts and prayers. Being upset about Roe versus Wade being overturned, but not doing anything about it, campaigning or going out there, protesting, doing whatever. Literally, you're just doing the absolute bare minimum. And I feel like in Green Inferno, that comparison makes no sense in a certain sense because A, the people were doing something, and B, they weren't really going voluntarily to deal with the tribe directly. They were trying to stop the deforestation of the rainforest, which I do believe that to be a noble cause. So I feel like he had this entire white savior complex and stuff, and that's how he promoted the film. But I actually find that, and please correct me if I'm wrong or I'm missing something, I actually don't see a lot of that relevant to Green Inferno.
Okay, I can see your point, but let's remember why Justine was there.
Because she liked Alejandro?
No. Justine was there for one sole purpose.
Female
And
genital mutilation.
The purpose of, we have a UN daughter, somebody from the UN, we have their daughter, and that means for something. So she was kind of like their
celebrity.
Yes,
Gotcha.
She was their Liberty card. She was the get out of jail free card.
That's very true. That is very true.
So that in itself, to me, is more of, I'm going to manipulate and exploit not only this tribe or what I'm trying to do, but I'm going to exploit specifically one person, convince them that they're not good enough, so they beg me to come, and then use her as my get out of jail free card.
Okay, I'm with you now.
And that's exactly what he did. So, and I mean, I hate using the term gaslighting, but that's exactly what he did to her.
Yeah.
He totally conned her into thinking that she was, crazy for not wanting to help. And
That's true.
that was the con right there. So in a way, Alejandro is really a con man.
Oh, for sure.
And he even used Jonah as bait. So that's why I think it's a lot of the exploitation of not only, he's just a con man. He's just an exploiter, period.
That's true. He definitely had ulterior motives as well for the whole thing.
Right. Because why did everybody else's lock work and hers was broken?
Yeah.
And what did Kara do? Kara was passing them out, and somebody grabbed the lock that she was trying to hand Justine, and she's like, no. Here, this is yours. This is hers. So it was a setup all along.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, I'm completely on board now. I agree. I completely missed that somehow in the grand scheme of things. So I was like, no, there's no way. This is cool. I'm on board.
Okay. And the ending, of course, is I love the ending because it leaves it so open. And I know that there was talk about, a part 2 beyond the Green Inferno, but that never went anywhere.
What I don't understand is that this film was vastly shit on when it came out. It did not make back the funds, the money. It didn't make up the budget. Mm-mm. It performed very poorly. I feel like Eli Roth, after Hostel, he had kind of a lot of bad films. Hostel in itself, I think, was before its time.
Yes.
People weren't quite ready for that. And so I think that Eli Roth got kind of a reputation for creating certain kinds of films that a lot of people avoid. And every horror fan I know went to see Green Inferno, or has at least watched it on Netflix when it was there as well. But most people haven't seen this movie. And it makes me really, really sad because they, like you said, they were doing a part 2, and that immediately died within months of them announcing that they were starting writing it. Like, it just died and dissipated.
Right. And it's kind of, it is a bummer because I'll tell you this, though. The first time I went to go see this, the gore sucked me in immediately. Mm-hmm. But the story in itself, I was kind of pissed because I didn't want to be laughing and watching gore at the same time.
It's a weird feeling, isn't it?
It is. And I was kind of like, well, fuck this movie. But then I sat down and watched it again another day because I think we're going to review it for some podcast I was going to be on. I sat down and watched it again, and I was like, man, I really don't want to watch this movie. But I sat down with more of just turn off your podcaster brain and just watch the movie. And I enjoyed it. And the reason why I enjoyed it was because, well, there was the gore I love, and there was some really ridiculous moments. And I'm like, this is not a horror film. This is more of an exploitation film with some serious gore. And then I really saw it for what it was. It was kind of his homage to Deodato and D'Amato and, even Werner. It was kind of him saying, thanks for making these films when I was a kid, and here's my way of saying thank you.
Cannibal Holocaust was the number 1, and then Cannibal Ferox too.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Is like I think it's like 50-50 Cannibal Holocaust and Cannibal Ferox, which Ferox was the other big one of the day of the Italian cannibal films that came out. Almost identical storylines.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, it's really an homage, and I love that about this film. I think that I love Green Inferno. Like, I love it. The only issue that I had is I do find that there are some tonal inconsistencies. There's a lot of humor in this film, right? Like, you laugh at stuff that you're really not supposed to laugh at, which I think is a feat in itself. But, for example, at one point, the group has been captured and they're being held in a pen in the middle of the tribal community. One by one, they're getting murdered. Tribes people are coming for them, taking them out. And they have a shit ton of weed on them. So they decide to stuff marijuana down the throat of one of their dead friends so that when they cook her body, it's going to smoke out the tribe. And I mean, speaking for myself as a bit of a marijuana connoisseur personally, what happens when you smoke weed? A lot of people get hella munchies. And so if you give a cannibal tribe the munchies, what do you think is going to happen? They're going to go in, they're going to get into the kitchen. So, that was a little ridiculous. That the total inconsistencies there between, like, this is terrifying and awful, and then we're going to smoke them out is a little much. Also, while they're waiting in the pen, remember how he starts to masturbate, like furiously masturbate?
Oh my God, yes.
Because he's stressed out about his impending death, and he's like, I'm just gonna, I guess, rub one out. And that's not to say that the humor isn't appreciated, because I do think that some of the humor is used as a social commentary in itself. But like I said, I saw this film in theaters twice. I loved it. The entire theater was roaring with laughter. obviously in between groans because it was so disgusting. And that isn't to say that this aspect ruined it for me. You know, there were a few moments of, okay, that's enough of that. The frat boy humor that I call it, which, and I think Eli Roth does come with a little bit of that to the table, and I can't stand it. I mean, in full disclosure, that's why I can't listen to Last Podcast on the Left. You know, there's only so many frat boy poop, diarrhea, masturbation, penis jokes that I can handle in one given moment. And I think Eli Roth himself fluctuates between like brilliant horror writer and director, and then basically a more clever Dane Cook. And so that kind of bothers me. But what I truly, truly love, I guess my final thoughts on it, what I truly, truly love about the Green Inferno is how it was filmed. What a lot of people may not know is that it was shot in South America in an actual indigenous tribe. All of the actors in the film, the tribes people, are actual indigenous tribes people from a local tribe that have not really seen people before. There are about 300 of them. They've never left the village. There's no electricity, no running water. They do, in fact, live in straw huts, dirt floors. They're not cannibals, obviously. And the children of the tribe actually spoke Spanish, and the adults and the elders of the tribe spoke their native language, which no one could do. So Eli Roth and the filmmakers went there, spoke with the children and the younger generation through Spanish, who then had to translate the needs to the elders of the tribe. The authenticity of this film is off the chain. It feels so authentic. When you're watching this movie, you feel like you have been transported to an actual Amazonian tribe, and that's because you quite literally have been.
And that's pretty amazing.
That's incredible. I mean, that in itself is incredible. They worked very, very well together. Eli Roth paid them very, very, very well. I think that aspect as a whole is incredible. This wasn't done on some Hollywood soundstage. This was done in a South American actual indigenous tribe.
And again, I think that probably goes back to Deodato's and Diamato's way of doing, all these Mondo films. And they were filmed basically the same way.
You got it. And I think that, this was filmed in 2012, released in 2013. I don't think, honestly, Iris, do you think that this film, The Green Inferno, could be released today in 2023?
No. I think it would be heavily censored.
Heavily censored, and just people, God, I hate using the term woke. I mean, everyone knows where I stand politically on this podcast. I am a leftist, right? Like, I am on the left, but I hate the way that the left acts half the time. And so I feel like this film would be really just lambasted and canceled, honestly, if it were released today.
It would. Not only that, but I think there are so many people with sensitivities.
Mm-hmm. And the thing about it is that it's not, the point of the film isn't to say these tribes people, indigenous tribes people, the cannibals are gross and they're awful and they make us uncomfortable and there's no reason for them to exist and they're all bloodthirsty heathens. That's not the point of it. Nor was it the point of Cannibal Holocaust, frankly.
Mm-mm.
But I digress. It makes me sad.
It is. It is sad that not a lot of people have seen this, but it's like you said, for a horror film aficionado like us, we have to go through 10, 20, sometimes even 50 films before we find that one gem that we're like, oh my God, this was just so fucking badass.
We are such gluttons for punishment.
We are. But we're horror fans.
Right? I mean, that's Green Inferno. I love. Out of 5 stars, what would you give it?
I'm gonna give it. I'm gonna give it a 4, but only for the gore, not for the story.
Same, hard same. It's beautifully shot. The color palette on this is just absolutely gorgeous. Gorgeous.
Oh my God, the greens, the reds, the yellows. Oh.
I'm giving it a 4 based on the gore alone, as well as just whoever the director of cinematography was and the director of photography, just chef's kiss to you.
Mm-hmm.
But that's Green Inferno. Over to you, Iris.
Okay, so Cannibal Holocaust. So this movie was in 1980, and this was directed by Ruggero Deodato. The reason why he had done this was he was inspired by the Italian media coverage of the Red Brigade's terrorism. Now, if you don't know who the Red Brigades were, basically they were Marxist-Leninist armed organizations in Italy. And they were responsible for just violent incidents in Italy. I mean, kidnapping, murdering, all kinds of stuff. He and his son were basically watching the media cover this, and this is basically something he's like, there's some truth to this, but to me, it kind of feels a little created. Yeah. He goes, why don't I make a movie about graphic violence that kind of looks like it was this great documentary, and it's showing you how these people live and how they're being exploited, but it was actually the filmmakers that were the ones that were exploiting and raping and pillaging. So here's just a synopsis of the Cannibal Holocaust. I was going to put Cannibal Holocaust. No. Cannibal Holocaust. And again, spoilers. So it begins, a crew basically has disappeared in the Amazon rainforest, and they were filming a documentary about the indigenous cannibal tribes. And they were looking for them. So the team is basically a kid by the name of Alan Yates, Faye Daniels, real name Tina Daniels, the scriptwriter, and then their two cameramen, which is Jack Anders and Mark Tomaso. They're missing. And, they're Americans, so of course somebody has to go find them. So the film company, I guess you could call it, that was sponsoring these guys finds a anthropologist by the name of Harold Monroe. And I love how the Italians see Americans. Because this professor comes with tweed jacket and pipe.
Yes. It's more Sherlock Holmes than... Man.
Yeah. The only thing that was missing was, like a little bit of absent-mindedness and the curly... Well, no, he had the curly hair, didn't he? Okay, so basically, so he's going to go, and he is going to go down and basically follow their footsteps and see if he can't either find them or something that belonged from them. Basically, either they're dead or alive.
Right.
Next scene you have is military guys. Well, first of all, it's these indigenous people there, and they're eating. You can clearly tell that they're not eating a human, but that's what it's made out to look like. And kind of like in our game that we love, Robin. They're staring up in the sky and everything, kind of like they're freaking out, kind of like when you eat human flesh in Green Hell. Which is one of the things I was like, oh my God, this is just like the game.
It really was. For those of you who are not in the know, there is a wonderful game on Steam that myself, my friend Ashley, and Iris, that we've all put God only knows how many hours into. But you basically play a researcher who is stranded in the Amazon jungle. And yes, you are surrounded by cannibal tribes. And so it's like a building survival game. You build your base, and there's a storyline mode and whatnot. But like, it took 100% inspiration from Cannibal Holocaust.
Oh my God, so much. Down to the spiders and the snakes and everything.
Yeah.
Okay, so they shoot all these guys up. The military guys come up and they shoot all these guys up, and they wound one guy and they grab him, and they find around his neck is a lighter. He has it, made into a necklace. So then Harold comes down and he meets up with these guys, with this rescue team. Basically, what he does is he's kind of trying to arrange a way to get a guy to take him into the jungle so he could find what happened to the Americans.
Mm-hmm.
So this guy, This guy's great. I love him. So the guide, he shows up and he's like, yeah, okay, well, I'm going to take you in there, but good luck because, it's an awful thing. And you're going to leave it's, basically a caricature of, again, an American who is supposed to be, this tough guy. I don't know what else to call him, ranger tracker type of dude.
Yes.
So they do go in, they take the kid that they had captured, and he's basically taking them back. Chaco is the name of the guide, and then he has an assistant, Miguel. So they're trekking through, and they have a couple of encounters with the Yakumo, which is the tribe that this kid's from. And one of them happens to be, this was a little rough in this movie. This guy, this native he has a woman in his boat. He brings her in, and basically he rapes her with a stone. Violently. And as they're watching this, Monroe goes, well, this is a ritualistic punishment for adultery. And the guy ends up killing her. But Monroe wants to help, and he's like, no, you can't do that.
Yeah.
But Chaco's like, no, just let it be. We'll just follow him, and we're good to go. So they continue on. They're trekking on. They come across a camp, and you can tell that there is a burnt out turtle shell and stuff like that. And as Chaco sees a jaguar, he takes after the jaguar, shoots, and then goes after the jaguar, make sure it's gone, because goddamn, jaguars can put a hurt into you, can't they, Robin?
They sure can. Green Hell Chip.
Another game reference.
Yeah.
As he trips over a log and he falls, and there is a skeleton, or the remains, and he's like, oh, damn. I know this guy. And basically he is the guide that the Americans had taken.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll find out what happened to him. Basically, they make it to the camp. And the way they are let into the indigenous tribe, what was the Yacuna? The way they were let into Yacuna, I thought was very interesting. It's basically Miguel strips down to nothing. And yes, it is frontal nudity in this movie. It's Italian, they don't have the puritanical thoughts that we do, the way we think. And he's standing out there with this other kid, and the Yacuna rise up and they all blow darts right at his feet, and he doesn't move. So basically he's proving to them, I'm brave, I'm not scared of you, and I have this person here. Do you want him back?
Right.
They let them into their village, but they still don't trust him very well. And as they walk into the village, they see like a burnt down hut, and they're all talking, and Chaco goes, yeah, well, your friends were here. They were rude. And according to the Yakumo, they ventured in and they went after the Yanamo and the Shamtari, which is the two warring cannibal factions. So they go looking for these cannibals. They find the cannibal tribe. And one of the ways that Monroe wins the cannibal chief over is he has a recording. He's got a tape player that's huge. Handheld, huge recorder.
Product of its time.
Yeah, it's the size of one of the bigger iPhones, and that's big. He plays tribal music, and basically the chief is convinced that if he can capture a person's voice, then he can capture their soul, with filming. So basically what the chief does is he brings down a body that they had hanging, cuts them open, grabs the lungs, basically just the organs that are in the chest, takes a bite out of the heart, and then hands it to the professor, and the professor's like, and he takes a chunk too. And eventually they give him the films. He comes back to New York. He goes to the executives of, I think it's the Pan American Broadcasting System.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
and they're telling him, hey, you are going to host a broadcast of this documentary of the covered film. Yes. And he's like, you might want to watch what's in those cans before you just throw it out to the public. And they do. And they find out what Alan and his crew were doing. One scene, they rape a girl. Another scene, they get, I believe it was the Yakumo. They put them all inside this hut and they're firing and shooting and stuff. And they set fire to the hut where all these people are. But what they are documenting is they're saying that, the massacre of the Yakumo by one of the cannibal tribes.
Yeah.
So it's basically, again, all of this is played up. It's being construed. It's being constructed. It's not real. It's not like real events. They're like making them up, which is what Deodato was thinking of when he was seeing what the media was talking about the Red Brigade. So eventually it comes down to the point where they get captured by the cannibals. One guy, Jack, which is this beautiful blonde tall man, he gets hit by I think he gets stabbed. He gets hit by a spear. The tribe grabs him. They go after him with cameras rolling. So this is how fucked up these guys are. Okay, it's like no, we need to capture this, and then we're gonna go. They are basically filming their friend being torn to pieces, dismembered. I mean, penis cut off. I mean, it's gory. It is extremely gory and beautifully filmed.
That's what I love about the Italians is that, like you said earlier, they have no puritanical view of the human body. I mean, don't get me wrong, Ruggero Deodato, like this pushed the envelope even for Italians, like the movie and the amount of gore. However, they show you, and
they do
is so real looking,
extremely real looking. Guts being pulled out, all kinds of stuff. And then they start running. They capture Tina, aka Faye, raped violently, while women are holding her, mind you. She also gets literally torn in half. Again, showing the gore, beautifully filmed, beautifully done. And then the last you see is Jack being hit by something. You see his bloody face, and then film stops.
Mm-hmm.
So by then, all of the executives are like, one of the executives goes to the phone and goes, yeah, burn the film. Thanks. And it ends there. The way it ends, and it's just beautiful. Monroe is basically leaving the station, and he thinks to himself, I wonder who the real cannibals are.
Right.
So, I mean, this is great stuff. Now, a little thing, and I'm sure you know, but maybe others don't. Deodato, when he filmed this movie, he told the 4 actors that they were to hide themselves for 2 months. Nobody was supposed to see them because it was going to take 2 months to get this movie out into the theaters. The Italian courts, after this movie was shown, were like, you either show us these people or you're going to jail for murder and creating a snuff film.
Okay, of any country in the world, if you think cinematically, right? What country in the world, and I'm not talking about Italy, do you think would actually be the most lenient with movies like this?
The United States. Yeah, just the United States.
So it was actually banned in the United States upon release, but it was actually when it was shown a year later. Now, like you said, so Deodato had them sign basically a part of their contract that they would go into hiding, as to not be similar to the Blair Witch Project, right? I mean, they literally stole that from Cannibal Holocaust. But when it was shown in France was actually like French media got their fucking knickers in a twist over it. And that's when it really started, like the speculation in French media is that, oh my God, the death scenes are so graphic and realistic because it's real, y'all. And then that ended up like France ended up talking to Italy and they're like, oh, we haven't seen these actors in a year. what's going on? And so Italy actually brought Deodato in on murder charges for killing people, that it was a snuff film, just only because there were no media appearances by any of the actors that he'd hired and claimed were alive.
Yeah, and even the sex scene between Faye and Ellen, even that agitated people because they're like, that's a bit graphic.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, because she was basically kind of like pushing him off and stuff and kind of like, not interested. But the guy was, it's almost a bit sexually assaulting,
Mm-hmm.
right? A little. But yet they were okay with the rape scene of the indigenous girl. So,
Right.
now, I know Robin doesn't want to talk about this, but I am.
I know where you're going, and go ahead. I've prepared myself in the past days to have this conversation. I've meditated. Oh, go ahead.
Another thing that had this movie and a lot of people with their panties in a twist was genuine killing of animals.
Mm-mm-mm.
There's 3. The first one is of a monkey. And basically, it's a cute little Reese monkey. And basically what they do is they chop its little head off. Well, just the top of his head, to get brain, and they squeeze. And they actually did do this for real. Another scene was they shoot a pig. And it was a pig for real. And you can hear the pig squeal after it's been shot.
Ugh. You want to hear the fun fact on that one? Is they actually killed 2 pigs for this. The first pig that they killed didn't actually apparently squeal enough for his liking. And so they adjusted where they shot the second one so that it would actually not die immediately, which is just...
Yeah. And then, of course, there is the turtle that they basically take the head right off, and then they just pull it apart and all that. So, like, a lot of people were like, oh, my God. But here's something about those animals. Even though they were killed, like, for real, those animals were used as food for the indigenous people that were there. So it wasn't just like, I'm killing it and, well, that's one less turtle in the world or one less monkey. No, they were used. So the butchering of the turtle, the pig, the monkey, yes, you do see the real killing of them, but they were used afterwards. They weren't just tossed to the side.
Unlike Necromantic and Jörg Bucharest, the director of Necromantic, the Germans, for some reason, especially exploitation directors, love to kill animals for some reason in their films. And they don't care. They just they kill them for the sake of sentiment and then throw them away, and it's horrifying.
Yeah. And it was, Deodato was not an easy guy to work with.
No.
He could be quite the asshole. He had no feelings. If you didn't like something, well, tough shit, I'm paying you for it.
Yeah.
Get on with it.
Which scene was it where one of the actresses was very uncomfortable with it, and he basically cussed her out in front of everyone and threatened her?
Right. Oh, yeah, Cardi didn't want to show her boobs.
Oh, that's right. Yep.
During the sex scene, and he's like, I'm paying you for this, so get on with it. So when she said no, she wouldn't comply with direction, he did lead her off and scream at her.
Mm-hmm.
Until she agreed to perform the scene.
Some major Kubrick vibes there.
Very, very. And for a lot of the guys, some of the film crew people, during some of the animal killings, they were puking and crying, and they just couldn't handle it. And again, it's like, shut up, I'm paying for it, get on the camera, let's go.
Being as though you've mentioned the animal killing, I would just like to interject and let everyone know, I love Cannibal Holocaust. I love the film. And on release, I mean, if this is a film, this is a really historic film, right? Like, it is a very important film in movie and cinema history. So if you want to see it, they do actually have releases that are animal cruelty free. But also adding on to how Ruggero was a complete piece of shit as a person. And this is actually interesting. He wanted to actually interlace real killing, so the killing of the animals, with the fake special effects, because he had a theory that it would actually make the film more realistic and brutal. And I'd say he succeeded in that,
Oh,
honestly.
yeah. Very big success.
But if you want to see an animal cruelty-free version, you can. It is available online, and you can buy it and so forth. And it takes out the needless. I will say needless, and that's like so white savior of me, right? I'm like, these people literally ate that food. They ate that food. That was their food. They killed that Deodato provided for them, and here's my white savior ass like needless killings. How awful.
And if you do want to watch the real one, Shudder has it right now.
Mm-hmm.
Not the Prime Shudder, but the one you have to have a Shudder app. Don't go to Prime. Prime does not have it because Prime Video so upset with them because they got rid of so many good exploitation movies because boobs.
You just taught me something because I've always subscribed to Shudder via Prime.
No. Go to the app one, not the one through Prime. They have the hardcore stuff.
Oh, I'm sold.
Yeah. You don't want to go through there because I was looking. I was like, I know it's on Shudder. Went through Prime Video, couldn't find it. Went to my Shudder app, and there it was. And yes, I'm stupid. I'm paying for 2. Not anymore.
I bet it's probably on Tubi too.
Yes, it is on Tubi. It is on Tubi for free. But yeah. So, Robin.
Yes. I mean, pretty much everything that you've said. I heard about Cannibal Holocaust when I was just a wee babe, probably 12 or 13 years old, when I mentioned in the blog that I posted on our website, kind of like my journey into true crime and whatnot. But first horror movie I ever saw, I was 6 years old and I saw The Exorcist. So I just loved horror right off the bat. And so naturally, I've always been one for, I love gore in horror movies. Cannibal Holocaust is a film that I sought out. I saw it for the first time when I was, I think, 14. Way too young to have probably seen that.
Wow, kid.
Yeah. 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 So it's not an enjoyable experience. It's not a film that you're going to be like, I'm going to get in my internest all cozy and watch a feel-good movie. A Cannibal Holocaust is not the movie that you turn on for that.
Try Martyrs instead.
I'm not right. God. I was basically despondent for 3 days after Martyrs. So. Oh, shit, you're not kidding.
Oh, we're cruel bitches.
Oh. But it's like, I think movies like this absolutely have their place. It's historic for a variety of reasons. I mean, if you like the Blair Witch Project and you don't mind gore in films, this is a great film to see. It has its place in movie history. And what I think is more interesting about it, though, is the reaction from various countries. I mean, at one point, y'all, it was banned in over 40 countries.
Yeah.
It was one of the UK's, if you guys have heard of, I'd love to do an episode on the video nasties of the UK.
Yes.
They had a list of banned films. Cannibal Holocaust wasn't legally able to be shown or sold in the UK until 2011. 2011, y'all.
Wow.
That's insanity. I think the reaction to the film is why I find it so interesting. But it's realistic for sure. And it is a hard watch. That is for certain. Yeah, get the animal cruelty version if you are interested in seeing it. I love horror movies and I absolutely love gore, but I'm also the same bitch that goes to doesthedogdie.com before I watch anything because I can't handle it. I cannot handle seeing animals harmed even fictitiously. So, like, I'm the one who cries in the opening credits of Marley and Me. I don't even get to the end when they put the dog to sleep. Just because I know what's going to happen, I'm already in tears as the movie starts.
Oh my God.
If you're not like me, probably go for it. But otherwise, get the animal cruelty free.
One thing that I did not mention was the music. And the music
so
in this is fucking amazing.
In all Italian horror films, the music is amazing.
It's something that they do well. And it's got stuff from beautiful symphonic movie to, electronic synthesizer. Womp, 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 womp. When they're massacring the filmmakers. But something you had mentioned before we started that I think is something of note is very first found film footage film.
Mm-hmm.
Just, I was reading a little while ago that Blair Witch, basically they took quite a bit from here. Just the way it was filmed and the way things were done. But I think you mentioned Blair Witch already. But just, just a little note.
No, it's really cool that this one random Italian cannibal movie literally was the creation of a whole subgenre of films. There are probably hundreds, if not at least 1,000 found footage films out there now. All born out of this for the most part.
Right. And what's interesting though, if you ask Deodato, he's the one that invented the cannibal genre. You ask Yamato, he's like, oh, no, I did. And it was this funny conversation that they were having with each other, trying to figure out who was the one that invented this whole genre. The genre in itself is, I think, a lot of fun because there are so many other films that came after this that grabbed from this, the cannibal genre, the Italian cannibal genre. So, and some of the movies weren't even in the jungle. You have City of the Dead.
Yeah.
Zombie. And several other Italian movies where you have... What's that one where the city, there's zombies, and it happens to be a dream, but then it happens for real. God damn it. What was that?
Nightmare City?
Yes, Nightmare City. There you go. Boom, boom, boom. Nightmare City.
And the zombies have knives?
Yes. The zombies had weapons.
God, that was a ridiculous movie.
Oh, but it was so much fun. But yeah, it's a lot of these films, they have a lot of gore, they have all this, but I think it's what you expect out of Italian horror movies.
Yeah.
And if you're up for it, I mean, have at it, because you're going to have a fun roller coaster ride with any of these movies. And I mean, if you're in a gore like we are, these are for you.
For sure. And it's my favorite genre of horror for sure. It's, America, each country, the French exploitation or French transgressive cinema is my favorite subgenre of horror. You have Martyrs, Inside, High Tension.
Yes, High Tension.
Frontiers. Like, there's a whole slew of horror films. I think the French personally do it best in terms of storyline, in terms of balancing storyline and gore. But the Italians are definitely right there with the gore aspect and the realism. Americans, we suck. Like, I'm sorry. We have American Guinea Pig, the remake, like the new American Guinea Pigs and stuff. But we're just too Puritan to have a lot of this kind of stuff.
Yeah. We just have a Puritanistic mentality. As much as we would like to get away from, our forefathers and what they meant, it's bred into us. But yeah, these are two great movies.
I think I'm partial to Green Inferno just because it's a little bit more modern, updated. There's no heinous amount of real life animal deaths, and the color palette is just so beautiful. But I mean, definitely Cannibal Holocaust is a great film. It's historic, and probably if you're into cinema just at all, definitely worth a watch to have to say that you've seen it.
Yeah, and see, I am the opposite of you. I am more into the Cannibal Holocaust because I love the realism. I love there was no hold bars. The animal killings, cruel. We believe them to be cruel, but they really weren't. But they gave the film such realistic view of things. It gave it such a realism that it's hard to tell. Well, is that real or is it not? And did they really kill that person or not? It just fucks with your brain, and I think that's what I like.
No, it absolutely does. And, honestly, that's my own hypocrisy showing too. As a meat eater, my food is killed. So how can I sit here and lambast a film for killing creatures to provide food? So it's my own hypocrisy, really, but it's just not something that I can visually stomach, I think. All right. Well, that's it for this episode, guys. On the next episode, and I'm just going to be completely honest with you, until Halloween, It is going to be 50% Chris Chan and 50% horror with Iris. Because I love Halloween and I will use any excuse to talk about horror films. So that being said, next episode is going to be The Conjuring 2 and The First Nun. So The Nun, the first one, and then The Conjuring 2. And I don't know how many of you have seen it yet, but The Nun 2 is now out. It's been out for about a week so far. The next episode after that will be covering The Nun 2, as well as the demonology and the lore surrounding The Conjuring and the universe of The Conjuring, particularly with The Nun. As Iris stated, I think in the last episode, the sheer amount of research and care and concern for the actual lore that they have for this is astounding. So we're actually going to be covering that as well.
Yeah, they created a beautiful mythos around this all, and I think that was very well done.
Indeed. Agreed. Not to mention, have you seen The Nun 2 yet?
No, not yet. I'm saving it.
I haven't either. I did watch The Voyage of Demeter, though.
How was that?
It's wonderful. It's so pretty. It's nice to have a non-sparkly vampire for sure. Some brutal kills too, which is fun. But
nice.
Definitely check it out when you can. And yeah, beyond that, so next week, The Conjuring 2 and The First Nun. Iris, as always, tell everyone where else they can find you.
Well, you can find me here. You can also find me on... you can find me also on a show. It's called the Cinema Beef Podcast, and it's another podcast where we review movies, and it's basically anything and everything. We did Killer Joe, which is, wow, what a movie. Fellatio and a drumstick. That's all I'm saying.
What?
Of course, then our usual bi-weekly podcast of That's Sorta Weird, and you can find it on that'ssortaweird.com. And yeah, that's basically it.
Awesome. Well, I'm so thrilled to have you and talk about all of the gross, squishy things that we will be talking about.
It's wonderful.
It is. And with that, y'all, until next crime.